So the NBA draft is less than a month away, which means it's time for another updated mock draft, but this time I'm actually including some realistic trade ideas that was laid out in a recent Bleacher Report article into the mock draft, and some of these moves are going to completely shake up the lottery. So let's jump into it. But before we even get to the number 1 pick, we have our first trade of this mock draft as the Utah Jazz move up from the 2nd pick to the 1st pick in this draft and are sending Washington the number 2 pick and a handful of future 1sts and 2nds. So now starting with the number 1 pick, the Utah Jazz have traded up with the Washington Wizards and select AJ Dybantsa from BYU, and it's no secret that the Jazz desperately want to find a way to get AJ Dybantsa to stay in Utah, and in this mock they do just that. Utah owner Ryan Smith is a BYU graduate, and Dybantsa is the exact type of star wing every franchise is hunting for. He measured 6 foot 8.5 barefoot, had a +4 wingspan, and posted a 42-inch max vertical at the draft combine. But it's not just the tools. He also creates off the bounce, gets to the rim at will, lives in the mid-range, is able to draw fouls, and has real point forward upside. And I believe Dybantsa has the best chance of being the best player in this draft class when it's all said and done. And pairing him with Keontae George, Lauri Markkanen, Jaren Jackson Jr., and Walker Kessler could jumpstart the Jazz to start contending for the playoffs next season. And now with the number 2 pick, we have the Washington Wizards, and they select Darryn Peterson from Kansas. And for Washington, this is the type of move that could define the future of this franchise, because in this draft, we all know there is not a completely locked-in number 1 pick. So if Washington can move down one spot, still land a franchise-level talent in Peterson, whom they might view as the best player in this draft class, and also add a massive haul of future picks, they almost have to take that. And Peterson has the type of positional size that makes him really intriguing as a lead guard at the next level. He measured with a +5.25 wingspan, and when he was healthy, he looked like one of the most talented college players in this draft class. He can score on the ball, play off the ball as well, hit movement jumpers, he has the ability to create for others, and defend multiple positions. But the concern has to be the durability after missing a decent amount of time while at Kansas. But if his body holds up, Peterson could end up being the best player out of this draft. And at number 3, the Memphis Grizzlies select Cameron Boozer from Duke, and this fit makes a ton of sense to me still. Memphis is an organization that has historically valued production, toughness, basketball IQ, and a competitive personality, and Boozer checks almost every one of those boxes. And he may not be the most explosive vertical athlete that we have in this draft, but he is probably the safest prospect on the board. He measured 6 foot 8 barefoot with a 7 foot 2 wingspan and 250 pounds, and he also shot 40% from 3 on high volume while in college. He also showed the ability to score in the post with power and footwork, and showed enough handle to function as a jumbo creator. The questions are going to be about his defensive role and whether he has true superstar upside, but next to Zach Edey, Boozer gives Memphis a frontcourt identity that's going to be built around size, force, skill, and winning, and will help them take that next step in the development of this roster. And with the 4th pick, the Chicago Bulls select Caleb Wilson from North Carolina, and for the Bulls, this is exactly the kind of upside swing this franchise needs at this point in time. Chicago finally committed to a youth movement, but before this pick, the rebuild still felt a little directionless. Josh Giddey and Matas Buzelis were obvious long-term pieces on the roster, but the Bulls needed another blue-chip talent, and Wilson gives them just that. He is 6'9" with elite bounce, a massive motor, and the kind of open-floor athleticism that pops immediately when watching him on film. And when he is flying above the rim, finishing through contact, and chasing down shots defensively, he looks like a future franchise cornerstone in the NBA. But right now, he is definitely not a finished product by any means, as he still needs to add strength, clean up defensive rotations, and prove the jumper can eventually come around. But still, at the number 4 pick, the upside is too good to pass up on. Next, with the 5th pick, the Los Angeles Clippers select Darius Acuff Jr. from Arkansas, and this is where the guard run in this draft really starts to become interesting. Acuff's size was once viewed as a concern, but after measuring 6'2" barefoot with a 6'7" wingspan at the draft combine, those concerns should calm down a little bit. Offensively, he is one of the most advanced guards in this draft class. He changes pace, manipulates defenders, creates shots out of the pick and roll, and can score at all three levels. And the thing I really like is that he also made progress as a playmaker overall. He came into college with a reputation as more of a score-first guard, and he still is, but at Arkansas, he showed he could move the ball, limit his mistakes, and play off the ball at times as well. But the overall defensive questions are real for Acuff. But for the Clippers, the offensive talent is strong enough to justify this swing, and with him being the next best prospect available, I think they have to take this one. Up next with the 6th pick, the Brooklyn Nets select Keaton Wagler from Illinois, and this would be one of the more fascinating picks in the lottery because Wagler is definitely not your typical high upside athlete. He was just a 4-star recruit who entered Illinois with very little one and done buzz as a freshman, but then he completely changed his draft stock. He became the engine of a high-powered offense in the Illini, which was one of the best in all of college basketball this past season, and he was the best freshman in all of the Big Ten and helped lead Illinois to an unexpected Final Four run. But the weird part is that he logged 0 dunks, so the athletic limitations are real, although that can be misleading a little bit. But his skill level, the feel, his overall shooting touch, and playmaking instincts are also real, and Brooklyn has already shown it values playmakers and ball movers, and Wagler fits that identity perfectly as a 6'5" or 6'6" lead guard with advanced awareness and the shooting touch that is going to translate to the NBA level. But before we get into the 7th pick, we have another trade, and this time it's Oklahoma City, who is making a move up from the number 12 spot to number 7 and are sending the Sacramento Kings the 12th pick and a 2027 first-round pick from the Clippers. So now with the 7th pick, we have the Oklahoma City Thunder, and they select Aday Mara from Michigan, and this would be such an OKC move to me. The Thunder have more picks than roster spots, so instead of waiting around, they move up and grab the best true center in the draft in this mock. Mara is 7'3" and 260 pounds, and he was one of the most impactful bigs in all of college basketball this past season, while helping Michigan win the national title. He reads the floor like a guard, finishes with both hands, protects the rim, and blocks shots with elite timing on the defensive end. But the concerns are also obvious because he doesn't necessarily shoot it well from outside. He struggled at the free throw line as well, and teams will test him in space defensively in the NBA. But OKC has the overall infrastructure to cover those weaknesses, and with their defensive talent, shooting development, and the patient timeline that they have, Mara could be a terrifying long-term piece for the Thunder. With the 8th pick, the Atlanta Hawks select Mikel Brown Jr. from Louisville, and after moving on from Trae Young, this is the kind of pick that just makes sense for Atlanta. The Hawks need another long-term answer at point guard. CJ McCollum definitely helped in the short term, but he is not the future, and Brown gives them a real offensive upside swing here. When he is healthy and in rhythm, he has deep pull-up range ability, ambidextrous finishing, and the ability to make quick passing reads before the defense can even react. The issue, though, was that during his freshman year, it was interrupted by a back injury, so the evaluation is not as clean as you would like, but the flashes of his play are special. He is incredibly skilled overall, he has total control of the ball, and is probably a better shooter than the numbers showed while at Louisville, and if Atlanta can support him defensively initially, this pick could age extremely well. Next, with the 9th pick, the Dallas Mavericks select Brayden Burries from Arizona, and this is one of the cleaner fits in this range in my opinion. Dallas needs to keep building long-term talent around Cooper Flagg, and Burries gives them a strong, physical, two-way guard who can fit a lot of different roster builds. He is also not just a scorer, he plays hard, defends his position, gets downhill with force, and has shown the ability to shoot it from 3 as well, and that makes him one of the more balanced guard prospects in this class. The Mavericks could also consider Kingston Flemings here, but Burries has more size and feels like a safer fit next to Flagg in my opinion, and he may not have the flashiest upside in the draft, but he has a very realistic path to being a long-term starter at the next level, and I truly believe he could play next to Kyrie Irving as well if the Mavericks decide to keep him, and if his creation overall keeps developing, the ceiling for Burries gets even more interesting. Rounding out the top 10 with the 10th pick, the Milwaukee Bucks select Kingston Flemings from Houston. And if Milwaukee is really preparing for a future without Giannis Antetokounmpo, this pick has to be about the next era. Flemings did not have the greatest measurements at the combine, as he came in around 6'3" with a 6'4" wingspan, which wasn't as tall as we were expecting, but the overall athletic testing and shooting drills were extremely encouraging from him. He is one of the fastest guards in this class, and the impressive part is that he can play at that speed without losing control. He has a surgical touch in the mid-range and an explosive first step and the passing vision of a true floor general, but the big question is whether the three-point volume becomes real and whether he can hold up defensively at the next level, and I truly think he can. But if Milwaukee wants upside, pace, and a guard who can eventually organize an offense and may take the next step as a creator, Flemings makes a lot of sense here at number 10. With the 11th pick, the Golden State Warriors select Yaxel Lendeborg from Michigan, and this is the type of pick that fits where the Warriors are as a franchise right now. Steve Kerr is back, Steph Curry is still playing at an elite level, and Golden State clearly wants to keep winning right now, and Lendeborg might be the best immediate impact prospect that we have available here at the 11th spot. He will be 24 as a rookie, so he is older than most first-round picks are, but that is also a part of the appeal here. He is strong, athletic, versatile, and ready to help an NBA team quickly. He also measured in with a 7'4" wingspan, weighs around 240 pounds, showed that he can handle the ball, defend multiple positions, as well as rebound, pass, and play as a connective piece. And that upside may not be as high as the teenagers in this draft class or the freshmen, but Golden State needs players who can survive playoff basketball, and Lendeborg can do exactly that. Up next with the 12th pick, we have the Sacramento Kings, who traded down with Oklahoma City and now select LeBaron Philon from Alabama. And for Sacramento, this trade down makes a lot of sense to me. The Kings need more than one prospect to fix this roster, so adding future draft capital while still landing a high-level guard is the smart play. Philon gives them real shot creation upside. He is shifty, crafty, and became one of the best guards in all of college basketball as a sophomore with Alabama this past season. He doubled his scoring output, used floaters and a deceptive handle to get into the paint, and started to answer some of these shooting questions that we had for him as a freshman. But the big concern to me is his frame, as he is a below the rim athlete and listed under 180 pounds, so strength will matter at the next level. But he had 50-40-80 shooting splits while carrying a huge offensive load as a sophomore with Alabama, and Sacramento needs upside at the guard position, and I think Philon has it. And with the 13th pick, the Miami Heat select Cameron Carr from Baylor, and this feels like a very Miami Heat type of pick. Miami needs more spacing, more athleticism, and more shot creation around Bam Adebayo, and Carr checks all of those boxes to me. He led Baylor in scoring, shot nearly 40% from 3 on high volume, and showed flashes of becoming more than just a 3-and-D type of wing. And the athleticism of Carr is what makes him really intriguing, because he showed he can finish in transition, throw down highlight reel type dunks, block shots from the weak side, and create energy plays on the defensive end, and his nearly 4% block rate is elite for a wing. But the concern is similar to Philon, and it's his strength, because he only came in at 184 pounds, so NBA physicality is going to test him. But after dropping 30 points in his first combine scrimmage, Carr has real lottery momentum, and in Miami's development type system, he could become a steal at this point in this draft. And at the end of the lottery with the 14th pick, the Charlotte Hornets select Morez Johnson Jr. from Michigan, and this is a strong, physical, front court addition for our Charlotte team that has a real opportunity to keep building through this draft. The Hornets already have perimeter pieces, but they need more long-term answers up front, and Johnson helped himself a lot at the combine as he measured in at 6'9" without shoes and had a 7'3.5" wingspan. He also tested well athletically and then surprised people by shooting the ball better than expected in the shooting drills, and that matters because if teams believe the jumper is real, his draft range changes. Even without the shot though, he has a clear role in the NBA as he is a 250-pound wrecking ball with soft hands, a non-stop motor, and the defensive IQ to switch across positions. And he may not be full-time at the center position, but his toughness and versatility give him a long-term path to a front court role at the next level. With the 15th pick, the Chicago Bulls select Hannes Steinbach from Washington, and after taking Caleb Wilson earlier in this draft, This pick gives Chicago even more size, strength, and physicality for next season, and Steinbach was one of the biggest winners of the combine. He measured in at 6'10" barefoot with a 7'2" wingspan and weighed nearly 250 pounds after starting the college season around 220, and that's big because there were questions about whether he was a true center or more of a tweener big at the next level, but now he looks center size to me. His elite skill is his rebounding, as he has massive hands and he attacks the glass and finishes well around the basket as well. And he also has real post scoring polish after playing professionally in Germany before coming over to play college ball at Washington. But the biggest swing skill for Steinbach is his jumper, and if those 3-point flashes that we've seen become real, Steinbach becomes a much more valuable modern big for a rebuilding Bulls team. But with the 16th pick, the Memphis Grizzlies select Bennett Sturts from Iowa, and after grabbing Cameron Boozer at the number 3 spot, this pick gives Memphis a potential long-term guard solution if Ja Morant is moved. Sturts is not going to wow anyone with his athleticism, but he just knows how to play. He sees the game early, navigates ball screens, throws accurate passes. He also likes to use pump fakes and showed he can shoot off the dribble from NBA range. And after transferring from Drake to Iowa this past season, he carried a heavy workload and still found ways to produce in the Big Ten. He shot 36% from 3, which was a little streakier than expected, but the context matters because he had to create so much for himself with the Hawkeyes, and at the combine, he shot the ball extremely well and tested better than expected, and for Memphis, he could become a floor general or an off-ball connector next to their young front court that they're building. And next with the 17th pick, the Oklahoma City Thunder select Nate Ament from Tennessee, and this is exactly the type of developmental upside swing Oklahoma City can afford to take. The Thunder already traded up for Aday Mara in this mock, and they still have a roster loaded with championship level talent, so they do not need this pick to play right away. Ament is a 6'10" combo forward with a fascinating mix of size, fluidity, shooting touch, and overall ball skills. Before the season, he had top 5 buzz for this draft, but then he had an up and down year at Tennessee as a freshman, and now his range of where he can go is much wider. He needs to get stronger overall, he needs more consistency, and it may take time, but the upside he brings is obvious as a forward who can dribble, shoot, pass, and develop inside OKC's player development machine. This is exactly the kind of buy low swing that could pay off for a Thunder team that looks to keep building and building. At number 18, the Charlotte Hornets select Chris Sinak Jr. from Houston, and this is the Hornets using their second first-round pick to swing bigger. Morez Johnson gives them physicality and defense, and then Sinak gives them a lot of upside, especially on the offensive end. And on paper, he looks like a lottery-level type talent. He is 6'10" barefoot with a 7'5" wingspan, has the length to alter shots, the bounce to finish above the rim, and the mobility to move like a wing. He also has enough perimeter touch to make you dream about being an inside-out type of big, but his freshman season at Houston was not necessarily the cleanest. He struggled with foul trouble, did not score efficiently, and spent too much time wanting to play on the perimeter instead of embracing the physical work around the rim he could do. But still, Charlotte can afford to swing here, and if Sinak puts it together, he could massively outplay this draft slot. And with the 19th pick, the Toronto Raptors select Christian Anderson from Texas Tech. And for Toronto, this pick addresses one of the clearest needs on this roster, and that's that the Raptors desperately need a point guard. They need more pick and roll creation and someone who can make shots off the dribble and create easier looks for teammates, and Anderson would give them just that. He is a highly skilled lead guard with real shooting touch, strong ball screen instincts, and the ability to play with pace. He helped himself at the combine as well by measuring with a 6'6" wingspan, posting a 40.5-inch max vertical, and lighting it up in the shooting drills. The overall concerns are going to be his size around 6'1", the rim pressure that he brings, and his defense. And smaller guards always have to prove they can survive the physicality of the NBA, but Toronto lacks this exact offensive skill set, and Anderson's shot making gives him a real first round case to me. And rounding out the top 20 with the 20th pick, the San Antonio Spurs select Jaden Quaintance from Kentucky, and this is one of the biggest wild cards in the entire first round. Quaintance barely played at Kentucky, appearing in only 4 games, and teams are still trying to get comfortable with the health of his knee. And even at his pro day, there were observers who thought he looked explosive, but also noticed him favoring his right leg, so the medicals are going to be everything with Quaintance. But if he is healthy, the upside is obvious. He has a tremendous frame, extreme length, and real defensive talent. And for San Antonio, the fit would be fascinating because Victor Wembanyama can play with almost any type of front court partner, and Quaintance can be a defensive weapon next to him, giving the Spurs another long, disruptive big who can cover ground and help protect the rim alongside Wembanyama. With the 21st pick, the Detroit Pistons select Isaiah Evans from Duke, and this pick is all about giving Cade Cunningham more oxygen on the offensive end of the floor. Detroit desperately needs shooting, they need floor spacing, they need players defenses actually have to chase, and Evans fits that role. He projects as a movement shooter with positional size and long-term upside, especially if the handle keeps developing as it did from his freshman to sophomore year at Duke. And now, he is not the strongest wing in the draft by any means. He only weighs roughly 185 pounds, and he did not test especially well athletically, but the shooting is legit. He can fly off screens, relocate, punish defensive mistakes, and create spacing without needing the offense built around him, and that would matter for a Pistons team that already has Cade as their primary creator. So Evans may start more as a specialist, but if the off-the-dribble growth continues, there is more upside here than I think people believe. Next, with the 22nd pick, the Philadelphia 76ers select Dalen Swain from Texas. And this pick is all about betting on the jumper of Swain, because if Philadelphia believes it can fix his jump shot, Swain could be the steal of this draft. At 6'7", he has real wing size, can create off the bounce, get downhill, finish through traffic, and defend with activity on the perimeter. This past season, he became one of the most efficient isolation scorers in the country with the Longhorns, which is a massive selling point for teams. He gets to the rim with force and has a deep finishing package around the basket, but the problem is that the reason he lives at the rim is because the jumper is still a major question for him. The mechanics overall look stiff, the percentages have not been good, and he has not always wanted to take them, but as a versatile slashing wing, the tools are real and he could develop into one of the best players out of this class. Next at number 23, the Atlanta Hawks select Henry Vassar from North Carolina, and after taking Mikel Brown Jr. in the lottery, this would give Atlanta a completely different type of piece in the front court. Vassar might be the best stretch big that we have in this draft. He is a near 7-footer who shot 42.5% from 3 last season with the Tar Heels, and that immediately gives him a clean NBA role. He can space the floor, play and dribble handoffs, make connective passes. He also sets screens, catch lobs, and provides some rim protection, and that would be a valuable combination for the Hawks. And Atlanta needs another center who can play next to or behind Onyeka Okongwu, and Vassar gives them a different offensive dimension than him, but the questions are going to be his consistency defensively and overall on the glass as a rebounder. But if the shooting is real, which I think it is, he has one of the easier rotation paths among the bigs in this range to me. But with the 24th pick, the New York Knicks select Kareem Lopez from the NBL, and this could be the first international prospect off the board. The Knicks may need to consider bigs with Mitchell Robinson heading toward free agency, but Lopez might simply be the best player available here. He helped himself with his combine measurements, showing the size to play both forward spots and tying for the largest hands that was at the combine. And he is a Mexican native who played for the New Zealand Breakers in the NBL Next Stars program, and he made real progress this past season. And his overall appeal is that he's just a well-rounded prospect. He competes, defends multiple positions, handles the ball. He also pressures the rim and has a developing jumper, but the issue is that he is still more of a jack of all trades than a clear star at the next level. But for the Knicks, he feels like a long-term winning piece for a team that looks like they are contending each and every season in the East. Up next with the 25th pick, the Los Angeles Lakers select Luigi Suigo from Mega Basket. And for the Lakers, this pick is about addressing a very obvious roster need. They need more size at the center position, and Suigo gives them a massive swing here. He measured just under 7'3" barefoot, weighed around 290 pounds, and had a 7'5" wingspan, and also posted a ridiculous 9'6" standing reach at the combine. And those are eye-opening numbers to say the least, but he is not just big, he also has nice passing feel, some shooting touch, lob finishing ability, and real offensive rebounding production. He made 18 threes for Mega and posted a 15% offensive rebounding rate, but he is not especially nimble and he does not create much for himself, and quicker teams will test him. But if the Lakers want a center with size, some skill, and a clean developmental role in their system, Suigo is a very interesting option here at 25. With the 26th pick, the Denver Nuggets select Malik Thomas from Arkansas, and this would be a fascinating fit to me because Denver needs more half-court creation that does not always have to run through Nikola Jokic, and Thomas would give them a confident shot maker with deep range, a quick release, and real off-the-dribble scoring juice. And when Darius Acuff was unavailable for Arkansas, Thomas stepped into a bigger role and showed he could carry the offense. He shot 41.5% from the three-point line and showed defensive improvement throughout the season, which gives him a strong first-round argument if he decides to stay in the draft. But the concerns are his shot selection, overall physicality, and the ability to pressure the rim. And sometimes he drifted more into hero ball, but Denver does not have many easy ways to add offensive juice, and Thomas would give them a real bucket getter late in the first round. Next, with the 27th pick, the Boston Celtics select Koa Pete from Arizona, and this is the type of value swing Boston can afford to make. Pete entered the draft process with real pedigree, winning history, and overall physical tools, but the jumper has become the biggest question mark surrounding him, and at the combine, there were definitely concerns about what looked like reworked shooting mechanics, and he struggled in all of the shooting drills. And that matters because his future role becomes much cleaner if he can make open jumpers. But without that, he may be more of a small ball 5 than a true forward. But Pete overall is powerful, he's physical, relentless, and extremely difficult to keep away from his spots. And he doesn't necessarily wow you as a vertical athlete, and he's not a polished self-creator, but Boston has a strong development track record, and in the late first round, the toughness and versatility are worth betting on, and his overall upside could be one of the highest at the end of this. At number 28, the Minnesota Timberwolves select Ibuka Okori from Stanford, and this pick is about adding additional guard depth and rim pressure to the roster. Minnesota could lose Ayo Dosunmu in free agency this offseason, and Dante DiVincenzo is out for the foreseeable future with his Achilles injury, so the backcourt needs more juice around Anthony Edwards. And Okori is one of the best driving guards that is in this class. He is only 6'1", but he has a tight handle, sudden burst, and has shown the ability to manipulate defenders with his change of speed. And at Stanford, he led the ACC in scoring, had 8 30-point games, and developed a reputation for clutch shot making. But the overall concern is his size, his playmaking, and whether the scoring he showed in college is going to translate against bigger NBA defenders. But his speed is real, he can touch the paint on demand, and his 3-level scoring will give Minnesota a much needed offensive spark off the bench. Next, with the 29th pick, the Cleveland Cavaliers select Allen Graves from Santa Clara, and this is a very Cleveland type of pick because the Cavs are still searching for the right long-term fit at the forward position. And Graves is not the flashiest prospect in this class, and he did not necessarily help himself much with his athletic testing at the combine, but the analytics absolutely love him. He has a rare blend of defensive playmaking, passing, offensive rebounding, physicality, and feel and touch for the game, and that combination gives him a path to becoming a really useful NBA role player. And he may not be the final answer at the forward spot, but he does a lot of the little things that impact winning. And the swing question is whether the shooting and his athletic limitations cap his upside. Before a Cleveland team that needs connective tissues around its core, Graves could make a lot of sense here. And with the 30th and final pick of the first round, the Dallas Mavericks select Tunde Yesufu from Baylor, and after taking Brayden Burries earlier in this mock, Dallas can afford to take a bigger upside swing with this pick in my opinion, and Yesufu has some of the best physical tools in this range. He plays with power, explosiveness, and contagious energy, and when he is attacking downhill and pressuring the rim and using his athletic gifts defensively, he looks like a player who could become a major value pick here at the number 30 spot. But the issue is that the feel still has to catch up because his shooting numbers need to be more consistent, and defensively he has to turn the tools that he has into a more reliable impact overall. But Dallas has Cooper Flagg as their long-term centerpiece, and that gives the Mavericks a runway to develop players around him, and if Yesufu hits, he could give Dallas a high-energy, high-upside guard who changes games physically with a jump shot that I do think is going to develop. But that wraps it up for this mock draft. Let me know your thoughts on it in the comments down below, and also let me know what you thought of these trades, or if there are any other trades that you think could happen on draft night. Also, if you enjoyed the content, don't forget to drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.